You're welcome back to Afia TV News. That's our conversation segment. Of course, we're speaking about the ICC issuing arrest warrant for Netanyahu, Gallant, and the Hamas commander. The International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the country's former defense minister Yoav Gallant, and the Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif for alleged war crimes relating to the Gaza war. It is the first time that leaders of a democracy and Western aligned state have been charged to court or by the court in the most momentous decision of its 22-year history. Netanyahu and Gallant are at risk of arrest if they travel to any of the 124 countries that signed the Rome Statute establishing the court. Israel claims to have killed Deif in an airstrike in July, but the court's pre-trial chamber said it will continue to gather information to confirm his death. The chamber ruled that there were reasonable grounds to believe Netanyahu and Gallant bore criminal responsibility as co-perpetrators for the war crime of starvation as a method of warfare, and the crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts. However, the U.S. has criticized the move, with Joe Biden describing the warrants in a statement on Thursday night as outrageous. And he says, and I quote, "Let me be clear once again, whatever the ICC might imply, there is no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas. We will always stand with Israel against threats to security," unquote. The United States has been clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter, and the U.S. has previously welcomed ICC war crimes warrants against Vladimir Putin and other Russian officials for atrocities committed in Ukraine, exposing the Biden administration to accusations of double standards from many UN members, particularly from the Global South. Well, joining me now to discuss this issue is Nasser Abu Nassar. He's a political analyst and, of course, the BRICS ambassador, Jordan and the Middle East. And he's joining me live from Amman in Jordan. Good evening, Mr. Nassar. It's good to see you.
Good evening. Good evening for you and for the Nigerian people.
First off, before we go into the details of the ICC's arrest warrant, I'd like to know what's the real situation now in Gaza.
First of all, the genocide that is committed by the Israeli forces and the Israeli occupation is still ongoing. The bombing is still ongoing, killing as much as civilians in Gaza, children, women, doctors. This is a full war against unarmed civilians in Gaza sector, and not only in Gaza sector, but also in the West Bank, and right now in Lebanon and in Syria. So the Israeli appetite for war and for bloodshed is being obvious on all cameras all around the world, and sadly, right now, with the winters just coming to our region, many refugees, we are talking about full sector of more than 2 million people right now are homeless and living in tents under a very hard and severe cold and very bad health situation. While they are starving, Israel is continuing bombing them, and the whole international community is helpless. They can't even push to let the aid enter to those civilians in all parts of Gaza, especially in the north, where a very strong siege of the Israeli occupation army is being right now applied over more than 800,000 refugees who are homeless and living only in tents.
Yeah, there are pictures everywhere of that. And of course, this evening, whilst I was monitoring for my program, I saw that there was a strike that actually killed 6 people. Well, let's go now to your take on the US's stand, having made it clear that the ICC doesn't have jurisdiction to effect arrest on Israel's leader, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, some people have said it points to some hypocrisy there because whilst the US is saying crucify Putin, and of course grants the arrest warrant to Putin, and then on another hand, they're saying, well, this court doesn't have jurisdiction to arrest Israel's leader, Benjamin Netanyahu. And let's not forget that the arrest warrant wasn't just for Benjamin Netanyahu, but for Gallant and also the Hamas leader, Mohammed Deif, whom Israel claims they've killed. So let's get your take on that perspective.
First of all, this is not something new. The US and the European supremacy use the whole international community to apply their agenda all over the world. And their actions right now against ICC and ICG decisions about, the issue of arresting Netanyahu and Gallant is showing you not just only the double standards and the hypocrisy, but it's showing you how the West will act when any of those international associations will act if they are acting against the interests of the West. It's not just that they have the back of Israel. I want to say they were actually about to right now to declare a new legislation under the title Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act, which allows them not just only to put pressure and sanction over ICC or ICG, but on any court that is actually threatening their interests, the US and Israel and any allied country with the US. So on the other hand, we saw once ICC issued their decision about Putin, how the West used this decision in order to just to put more pressure on the media in order to change the facts that these NATO war were actually started by the West in Ukraine. They are the ones who actually made the reactionary movement in Ukraine, and they are the ones who funded the Nazi formation in Ukraine, starting not only from 2014, but actually from 2005. And then they actually led all of these demonstrations against the legitimate government in Ukraine. And after that, they are the ones who started the bloodshed in the Donbass. So let's be clear. The US decision was actually predicted because we, as a global South, and you're also from this global South, you yourself and Nigeria suffered from the colonization of Great Britain, and you know by yourself how the West supremacy and criminality will always act in order to ensure the dominance of the white man over us in the global South.
All right, we hear you. But of course, there's been talks about the ceasefire deals. Why do you think it's not been fully agreed on and carried out? Are there some interests, here and there that you'd want to touch on tonight?
Because there is no real interest to Israel or to the US to stop, to cease the fire. Let me tell you, let me give you some just, numbers. Right now, they killed more than 45,000 martyrs in Gaza. Over 17,000 of them are just kids. More than 12,000 of women, 1,000 of the doctors and nurses, and more than 200 journalists. This ongoing genocide is not about, what they call the right of self-defense of Israel. No, actually, it's about, ethnically cleansing of Gaza and pushing Palestinians toward leaving their homelands. Not forgetting that they are actually already moved from their own homeland when the Zionist gangs in 1948 actually started the first phase of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. All the Gazan people, they are actually refugees from Haifa, from Jaffa, from Asdod, from Asqalan, from all the cities that they were actually used to be a Palestinian land and got stolen in 1948 when those Zionist gangs started their genocide agenda. I think that the West right now are planning for a new colonization era in the Middle East. And what we are witnessing in Syria, in Lebanon, and the West Bank, and in Gaza is just a continuous war for the West because they are feeling that the global South is moving. They are feeling that the cradle is crumbled right now, and there is this people who want to real independence. They want to real freedom. They are not going to live under the shoes of the white man and of the colonization and of those Western invaders. That's why, my dear, and I don't think that the West want a ceasefire. They want us always to live under the terror. They want us always to live under, the mercy of their aircraft and jets, under their tanks. And if we need, that means then they might think about a ceasefire. I'm not optimistic about this. I am optimistic only about the will of the global South, the will of the people all around the world, and the solidarity with the Palestinian people and the Lebanese people and the Syrian people. And that's why I want to mention that there is no equal sides between the oppressor and the oppressed. There is no equal sides between the invader and the people, the indigenous, who were actually killed and transferred and ethnically cleansed from their homeland. You yourself, you suffered this in Nigeria, and sadly, we need us, the global South, to put an end to this long colonial criminal acts that we witnessed and we paid for it from our own blood.
People, whilst you were talking now, you mentioned that the land is stolen. A lot of people, maybe from the other divide in Israel, might not really agree with you, especially the historians who might want to say that Gaza was actually sold, to Israel, maybe after the war in 1967, if my memory serves me right. And of course, they might not want to agree on that. But we know that for every inch of ground that the Palestine, claims that Gaza belongs to them, Israel has fought to get those pieces of land back, in one way or the other. What's your take shortly on that before we proceed?
The whole land is Palestinian land. The whole land is Palestinian land. I just want to remember you about, or remind you about something. Let's go back to, South Africa. The white man came from Europe and then he built the apartheid system and regime in South Africa. But that doesn't make the white man in South Africa a landlord. That doesn't make them an indigenous people to this land. The land of Palestine was fully for Arabs and for the Palestinians. Those Zionist gangs came from Europe. The white man, in the same way, came from Europe with his guns, with his international support from the United Kingdom first, and then from the US, and they committed a mass killing and a mass destruction to the historical Palestine. What was once called Jaffa or Hayshak Mu'nis, right now is Tel Aviv. It is a Palestinian land. What is right now Akko? It used to be a Palestinian city, Akka. I myself, I come from Jerusalem, from a small village called Kobe, and this village is a Palestinian village. My family were actually killed in that village. Only 16 people managed to flee from the genocide that the Israeli and the Zionist troops committed in my village in 1948. So the whole land is Palestinian. Sadly, in our history, the narrative and the history is written by the ones who have the power, and the white man for so long had this power, the power of the narrative, the power of media. And by having this power, they changed the facts. They wanted us to believe that this land is not an African land, and the white man have rights in the African land, because those colonizers, they don't see us as landlords with a civilization or with an indigenous rule to this land. They see us as an a material for exploitation. And that's why they also promoted for so long that Palestine is a land for no owners to a people who have no land. I mean here the Jewish people. Okay, and this is a great scam. The Palestinians lived in this land 6,000 years ago and more than that. And they kept living in Palestine, developing a civilization, cities, villages, and the whole historical context that were shaped, and we were shaped with it. Then the colonial, the Great Britain colonized Palestine and declared what we name a Balfour Declaration, when they promised the Jewish to establish a Jewish state in the historical land of Palestine. And that's when the whole conflict started. The main idea of planting this colonial state in the heart of the Arab world was actually to plant an advanced military base in order to ensure the dominance and the controlling of all the Arab resources and wealth by creating this aggressive military base in the heart of the Middle East and in the heart of the Arab world. The same happened in Africa, and the same happened in South America. And right now, us, the people, the global South, have to change this path of the history. We have to give the truth to our people, to arm them with the knowledge of the right history of Africa, the right history of the Middle East, the right history of the Arab world, of Latin America, because knowledge is what they are afraid of. It's not only the guns. Right now, as you can see, they are against Hamas, because Hamas right now is representing the Islamist part of the social fabric of the Palestinians, but and they are calling them terrorists. But before, like just 30 years ago, the communists in Palestine used the one who was leading the armed struggle against Israel and the US colonization. And they used to call them terrorists. So it's not about what kind of idea that we actually have or holding in our minds. When we are fighting the West, we will be always considered terrorists when we are confronting the interests of the West, the interests of the Zionism, and the interests of the occupation. So the new world doesn't accept this. This is the main idea about creating a multipolar system where we can build a real independency, whereas our sovereignty will be ensured by international law and all kinds of occupation and exploitation to the human will-end. This is the main ideas why we are right now actually fighting hand in hand with Africa in order to get liberated also from those Western invaders that actually destroyed the Africans' life for so long.
Let's talk about the proposition by different ones about a two-state solution. Would you think that this is really, or this will be the solution to the age-long disagreement between Palestine and Israel?
It's gonna be work. First of all, because the occupation state, they don't want it. They are saying very loudly and very clearly that there is nothing called the two-state solution. They want to annex the West Bank and they want to annex Gaza. Not only this, they are right now talking about some parts of Lebanon, they are talking about some part of Syria and some part of Jordan. As I told you, this is a colonial state. they live by stealing the land and by ethnically cleansing this land from its indigenous people. This project is an aggressive and a criminal project. They don't want peace, and they don't accept actually to be part of the region because simply they are not part of the region. The only solution that I can believe in, because I am a Palestinian and because I am Arab, I believe that the Jewish problem in its modern way and the Zionist problem have to be solved in Europe. We're not the Nazis. The ones who killed the Jewish was the European one. Why we should pay as Arabs and as Palestinians the bills of the Nazi Germany, of all kind of Nazism and fascism that actually hit the Jews in Europe and the US for many decades in Europe. Right now, the European people want to wash their hands on our, own blood by supporting Israel to committing genocide, while they are the one who actually built the prison camps in Auschwitz, and they led all kinds of ethnical cleansing and killing of the Jews in Europe. We're not the one who killed the Jews. I think the Zionist problem and the Jewish problem is that they have to actually get freed from the Zionist ideology and to seek to solve their problem where it started. They have to solve it in Europe and in the West, because we never built any imprisonment camps to the Jews in the Arab world. They were part of the social fabric wherever they lived in, and the ones that right now is occupying Palestine, we are not dealing with them as a Jews. They are Zionists. They are full of a colonial and a hate ideology that is just want to implement one thing: stealing the land and ethnically cleansing it from its indigenous people. Third, they want to be the base of all kinds of Western interests in our region. They want our resources, our future, and they don't want us to be part of the civilization. That's why the West will always put obstacles in the shape of Israel, or a shape of Nazist Ukraine, or a shape of apartheid regime like in South Africa, in the heart of Africa. Of course, for one reason: in order to destroy our possibilities as people and as nations to enter to this new era of civilization, while the West is just living by using and exploiting our resources. From the diamonds, to the oil, to the gas, to the uranium, we don't have it, we don't own it. Only the West is living the wealth while we are starving. That's why they are implementing and planting such criminal states, and that's why we have to fight them in a united way all over the world. Because once we say, okay, let us accept the existence of this colonial state, this fascist state of Israel, that means we have to accept the existence of a Nazist Ukraine. That means that we can accept an apartheid regime again in South Africa or in Nigeria itself. This is the mentality of the West. And if you divided this big and united war against the West, that means that we will fall in the same mistake. We will be building our own slavery with our own hands. There is no solution but one solution: a full liberation of Palestine, and the Jews have to have the right to return to Europe and to solve their problem with the Western culture, that culture who actually enslaved them, and killed them, and discriminated and built the discrimination against them. So it's not our problem. We have one target, which means liberating the full Palestine, and that's our right as a Palestinians and as indigenous people to our land.
Briefly, just before I go, what does the Donald Trump presidency mean to the Palestinians? Is there a glimpse of hope that this long war will be put to end? Does it look good on the Palestinian side?
No one can predict what Trump will bring, but we have an experiment with Trump. He declared the annexation of Golan Heights as part of Israel, and after that, he moved the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in order to say that Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel, and he recognized that, which means like he's applying the same colonial mentality. We don't see any difference between him and Joe Biden. This is strategical colonial planning. Trump actually might declare within like weeks or days after after he reached the White House, the annexation of the West Bank itself, and recognizing of all kind of colonial settlements that were illegally built in the West Bank, and not forgetting that he declared, Trump himself, that we need to change the situation in Gaza by actually renewing the settling of the colonizer settlers in Gaza. For he actually and his son-in-law, they started the planning of a different kind of project in Gaza where they will hosting the villas and kind of beach chalets where the Western can enjoy our faith. This project, if they will apply, this will be built over more than 45,000 Palestinian martyrs. More than 17,000 of them are kids, and more than 12,000 of them are women, which means that it's the same criminal mentality, the same strategical colonial planning. And as a Palestinian, we have only one hope: the solidarity of the world, and the global South, and the people who want to actually make difference and to see a multiple system is being built all over the world.
We'll have to stop the conversation here, but we want to thank you for your thoughts tonight, Nasser Abu Nasser, a political analyst, and of course the BRICS ambassador, Jordan and the Middle East. It's a developing story, and we'll have you back here on our screens right here on Afia TV to tell us more on the Palestinian side. So thank you so much for joining me tonight from Jordan. Thank you.